it's Zoe. So in today's video, we're gonna be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about books because I have recently rediscovered my love for reading, and when I become obsessed with something, I go all in, can't shut up about it, and I basically make it like my entire personality. So here we are, dabbling into booktube. Growing up, I was a pretty big reader. I read a lot of dystopian, fantasy, and a little bit of YA romance, but I guess just with school and life, I kind of forgot that reading could actually be enjoyable. I mean, aside from like the few self-help books that I've read throughout the years, you just don't get lost in them like you do with a good fiction book. But yeah, it's been about 2 months since I've been back into reading, and I think I read 15 books throughout June and July, so today I'm gonna tell you guys which ones you should read. The first book that I read was People We Meet on Vacation by Miss Emily Henry. This book was the gateway for me into adult romance, and boy, did we start off strong. This story follows Poppy and Alex, who have been best friends ever since their freshman year of college. In the present, Poppy's like this travel social media influencer, and Alex, I believe, is a teacher back in their hometown, and every summer they go on vacation together, have been doing so for the past like 10 years until something happens 2 summers ago, and we don't know what it is, but we do know that they did stop talking afterwards. This has alternating timelines, so we get to see them go on all the vacations in the past, and in the present they go on one last vacation trying to salvage the friendship. And guys, I just loved this book so much. Oh my god, Alex Nielsen has my whole heart. I would say that this is more of a slower burn, but I personally didn't mind it. I loved seeing the progression of their platonic friendship over the years. They have a bunch of inside jokes and banter, and their friendship was just so genuine, and it just added to the angst and the yearning. 5 out of 5. I loved this book so much. I literally stayed up until like 5:30 a.m. because I just couldn't put it down. And this might be my favorite book out of all the ones that I read, so that's saying a lot. And then immediately after, I read Beach Read. I don't have the physical copy anymore because I lent it to a friend, but this book is about January and Augustus, who are both authors and I guess like academic rivals. They're both struggling with writer's block, so they make this bet to switch genres. So he has to write romance and she has to write, I think, like historical fiction. So they have to go on dates and do like research, interviewing together, and it takes place at a beach house setting. It's enemies to lovers. I think initially after I read Beach Read, I gave it a 4 out of 5, but honestly, now that I've read a lot more romances, it's more like a 4.5 because I genuinely really enjoyed the book. I think I just prefer friends to lovers more than enemies to lovers. Regardless, they were both bangers. I think one of the reasons why I enjoyed both books so much is because I had such a clear picture on who they were. Pictured this for Alex and this for Gus, and oh my god, it's so perfect. And reading this really solidified my love for Emily Henry's writing, not only for the amazing banter, which they all have, but her books are not just romance. They all touch upon deeper real-life issues like grief, depression, feeling lost in life, and it just makes her characters so much more real and relatable. So yeah, if you guys are wanting to get back into reading, then I highly recommend you to start with one of her books. They're just so addicting. I couldn't put them down. I mean, I literally owe it to this book for rediscovering my love for reading. Okay, next we have Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Also, can I just say that I love this cover. It's so pretty. This was my second time reading a TJR book. I read The Seven Husbands back in 2020, which I just adored with my whole heart. So I admit I did go into this with very high expectations, but thankfully I was not disappointed. This book takes place over the course of 24 hours leading up to the biggest party of the year in Malibu, like think Project X level. We follow the famous Reva family, which consists of 4 siblings who all serve, and their dad is this famous musician, so you know that there's gonna be like family drama. And also, can I just say that reading this, I did not realize that Mick Reva was one of Evelyn Hugo's husbands. Like, what? I did not know that all of her books are within like the same universe, but I did pre-order her upcoming book, Carrie Soto is Back. She's in this book, quite a character, so I'm very excited to read her story. I loved the character development of all of the siblings in this book. Oh my god, I feel like the Reva family is going to hold a very special place in my heart. Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing is so descriptive. The way that she paints the setting and the characters, I truly felt like I was transported to Malibu during the 50s and the 80s. The only thing that I didn't really like was the actual party itself, because she introduced so many new side characters POV that I found myself getting kind of confused, and I kind of just wish that she had focused more on the siblings. Overall, I gave this book a solid 4 out of 5, and again, perfect for summer. We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This book was so hyped on TikTok, and I feel like that can kind of ruin a book because you go into it with very high expectations. But yeah, I did not like this book. It just sucks when everyone loves something so much and then you read it and you don't get why. Like, I want to know what people saw in this book, but I just can't. I honestly kind of forgot what happened in this. Like, that's how unmemorable it is for me. I'm pretty sure it's about a group of friends, or they might be cousins, but they go to this private island every single year. But one summer, our main character has a big accident and she can't remember what happened and nobody will tell her. So throughout the book, we're just trying to figure out what happened. The writing style is pretty hit or miss for people, and for me, it was definitely a miss. I don't know, I just found it really choppy and kind of hard to follow. I get that it was meant to replicate her choppy memory, but I guess just after reading Malibu Rising, I thought that this book lacked a lot of depth and development, so I didn't really feel connected to anyone. And I'm such a huge character person with books, and if I don't feel connected to a character, I can't really enjoy it. I guess that's why when I got to the plot twist, it didn't fully wreck me. I'm so sorry. I saw on TikTok that this book had people sobbing, but I don't know, personally it just wasn't for me, so I gave it a 2 out of 5. The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Again, heard a lot of good things about this, but I would describe it more as a self-help book disguised as fiction. It was pretty slow for me, but I did find the concept to be interesting. This book is about how in between life and death, there is this library where each book represents a potential life that you could have lived had you made different decisions. We get to see Nora, the main character, as she dives into different potential realities where she's an Olympic swimmer, a rock star, a wife. I do think that this book oversimplified mental health and depression. It was kind of just telling you that you just have to try hard enough and change your mindset, which I think are important messages, but I do feel like it could have gone deeper. I don't know, I gave this 3 stars. It was a good read, but not one that I loved. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of getting into a reading slump after reading those 2 disappointments. So I decided to give Book Talk one last chance, and I read It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This book has so much hype. Colleen Hoover is probably the most popular author on TikTok, but wow. This story was so beautiful yet heart-wrenching at the same time. This book is about a girl named Lily, and she's from a small town in Maine, which, can I just say, I'm from Maine, and I don't think I've ever read about a character who's also from Maine because it's such a forgotten state. She eventually moves to Boston, and she's feeling pretty lost because her dad just died, and she doesn't have the best relationship with her mom, but there she meets Ryle, a neurosurgeon, and you kind of just see how their relationship evolves over time. Throughout the book, you also get a peek into Lily's past through her journal entries, where she writes about her childhood, family, and also her first love, Atlas. Oh my god, I loved Atlas so much. Honestly, he carried the whole book for me. Please be sure to check the trigger warnings before reading this, because I went into this unprepared. I was expecting a romance, but yeah, it's definitely a lot heavier than that, but it gave me so much insight and perspective on those sensitive topics. I don't want to say what they are because they're low-key kind of a spoiler. I feel like a lot of us can be pretty quick to judge people in those circumstances from the outside, but I think this book does an amazing job at explaining what it's like from the inside as someone who's experiencing it firsthand. The author's note at the end, oh my god, please read it. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Honestly, it lost a star for me because I just found Ryle to be so cringy. Oh my god. Am I gonna get canceled for saying that? I'm sorry, but I just found that man to be a walking red flag from the very first night they met. I honestly just wanted more Atlas chapters. Oh my god, speaking of, I cannot wait for It Starts With Us, Atlas's prequel and POV. I immediately pre-ordered it right after finishing this. Those are all the books that I read in June, and then going into July, I kind of wanted to branch out from book talk. So my friend recommended me Mary H.K. Choi, and guys, can we just take a moment to appreciate these covers? Oh my gosh, definitely the most beautiful books that I own. I read her first novel, Emergency Contact, and it is basically marketed as like a texting romance, which I thought would be interesting, but boy, was this a slow burn. Pretty sure it took about 100 pages for them to even start really interacting. Even though her books are considered YA, they definitely don't feel super YA. Like, they all deal with pretty heavy topics. Like in this one, they talk about racism, mental health, depression, panic attacks. I'm pretty sure I gave this like a 3.5. I liked it, but yeah, the pacing was just way too slow for me. Moving on to her next book, Yolk. This is her newest novel, and you can definitely tell that the pacing has gotten better. A beautiful story about two Korean sisters, Jane and June, who have this estranged, broken relationship until one of them is diagnosed with cancer, and it's just this really emotional story of the two of them navigating adulthood and also their relationship. Again, this is one of the books that's more character focused than plot driven, which honestly I don't mind because I feel like that's what makes this so raw and personal. Just as a trigger warning, this book does talk a lot about eating disorders, which I did not know going into this. I feel like I always forget to check sensitive subjects, but yeah, I did find this book to be pretty triggering at times, so just something to keep in mind if you do decide to read this book. There is a romance subplot in this, and I guess all I'm gonna say is that Patrick is hot and I want his apartment. But yeah, 4 out of 5. The last book of hers that I read was Permanent Record, and I have to say that this is probably my least favorite out of the 3, but I think it's mainly because I just went into this with the wrong mindset. I went into this expecting a romance, but it's really not. It's more of just a coming of age story. It takes place in New York City, and we follow this guy named Pablo, who is Korean and Pakistani, I believe. Leanna Smart, who's like this international pop sensation, and they meet at a bodega at like 5 a.m. and from there, chaos ensues. This book made me realize that I do not like insta love. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of this book, what I love about her writing is that all of her characters and relationships are so messy and complicated. I mean, I honestly found Pablo so infuriating at times when he would like push off his responsibilities and break certain promises, but I also related to him because I too tend to avoid my problems. Wasn't expecting to feel so attacked reading this, but I do recommend it. Next, The Roughest Draft by Emily Wimberly and Austin Sigmund Broca. This book is so meta because it's a book written by two co-authors about two co-authors. These two are in fact a married couple, so all throughout this book you're just wondering like how much truth are in these pages. Basically, our two main characters wrote this best-selling novel together, had a huge falling out afterwards, haven't spoken for years, but because of their contract they have to come back together and write one last book. This has dual POV from both characters, and I originally wanted to read this because I thought that it sounded very similar to Beach Read. Two authors stuck in a beach house setting, writing a romance book, enemies to lovers. While I did thoroughly enjoy reading this, I don't know, I just feel like the characters' chemistry didn't quite hit for me. I also think that I just prefer the witty banter of Emily Henry's writing, but that's besides the point. I love reading about characters who are authors because, I don't know, I find it so fascinating that we get to see like a sneak peek inside the publishing industry and what it takes to make a book. All in all, this was a fun, quick read. It was missing something for me, so I gave this a 3.75. Another one of my faves, The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. It's about a girl named Meredith who's mourning the loss of her sister. Every year, her and her family go to Martha's Vineyard, and this year, they're all attending her cousin's wedding, and the whole family plays this like epic game of assassin, and she makes an alliance with one of the groomsmen. There's adventure, drama, and of course, romance. A cute, wholesome read that left me feeling so happy and giddy inside. This book is giving 2019 Visco Girl summer vibes, and I'm here for it, so 5 out of 5. Next, I reread the entire Summer I Turned Pretty series by Jenny Han. The way that this series genuinely shaped my childhood growing up, I don't know, as a preteen, I just absolutely adored these books with every ounce of my being. When I heard that this series was being turned into a show, I screamed, and that was all I needed to rebuy the books. This series is about a girl named Belly, and her family spend every summer at Cousin's Island with Susanna, her mom's best friend, and her 2 sons, Conrad and Jeremiah Fisher. She's always felt pretty invisible with boys until one summer she has like a mini glow up and everything changes, like every girl's dream. I will say, rereading these as an adult definitely does not quite hit the same. It's very clearly written for young adults. While it's no literary masterpiece, I honestly didn't mind because, I mean, I read these books before I was even like an actual reader, so now rereading them as an adult just gave me that giddy feeling of nostalgia in the best possible way. These books are pretty easy to binge. I think I read like a book a day because I just couldn't put them down. Overall, I am glad that I reread this series. I think a part of me will always love it solely for the nostalgia. I feel like as a whole, I would give this series like 3.5 to 4, but I don't see myself ever rereading it. But I am very excited to watch the show. The casting is so perfect. Last but certainly not least, Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. Wow, I actually really love this book way more than I was expecting to. Just the pacing, the writing, the characters, everything about this book was just so lovely. And you know a book is good when it gets like a physical reaction out of you. I genuinely just could not stop smiling while reading this. Like, there's so many quotes in here that just like hit. So we follow a girl named Persephone, and her parents buy a summer lake house outside of Toronto, and her next door neighbors are Sam and Charlie, who are brothers, and it's a romance, so you know something's gonna happen. It's giving people we meet on vacation plus The Summer I Turned Pretty, and I just ate it up. Also seen people compare this to Love in Other Words, which I haven't read yet, but it is on my TBR, and this has the past, present, alternating timelines, so we get to see them growing up, falling in love for the first time, and in the present, we're trying to figure out what the falling out was. I loved Sam so much. He was so caring and so observant, but yeah, I did have some mixed feelings about the whole plot twist. I don't know. I feel like the author did a really good job at foreshadowing, but yeah, I was a little disappointed. The way that this book made me feel like a teenager falling in love for the first time, oh my gosh, a radiant debut indeed. 5 stars. And that concludes my first booktube video. I don't know. How did I do? Clearly, I don't know what I'm doing, but I just love books, and I guess I wanted to talk about them with somebody. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and let me know if you want to see more book content from me. Please feel free to leave any book recs that you have in the comments, because I am just entering my reading era, so I'm completely open to suggestions. I did start a book highlight on my Instagram in case if you guys want to follow along to see what I'm reading, and yeah, I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye! Oh my god, how do people do this? Oh my god.